But it comes up a lot. I mean, you got some people with very low self-esteem when it comes to hair. You have people who actually will go and have the implants done or whatever because they don't want to deal with the baldness, you know. But 9 times out of 10, the person have a problem with their hair is when they losing it or when it's growing too much. So I mean, you know, I'm with the rest of everybody else. Who's to say what's good or what's bad? You have women who will actually look for, and men who will actually look for a person with straighter hair or curlier hair to mate with. Like, you know how they make dogs, you know what I'm saying? You want to make your dog with a stud, you know what I'm saying? And that's how they do. They look for, you know, people who they think they're going to make their kids have good hair, quote unquote. You know what I mean? As opposed to just having a healthy child, you know what I mean?
Like maybe back in the 80s, 70s growing up, curly hair, straight hair was considered good hair. You know, girls saw you with your hair a little curly, whatever, you know, they tend to get more play. They consider that good hair, straight hair. But now, you know, nappy is in. You can have nappy afro. Kobe Bryant started wearing his hair nappy and the locks and the twist. So I don't think it's that, you know, important anymore. It's almost like a complexion thing, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, dark skin is in now. It seems like things switched up over the years.
Right?
Yeah, things are turning back to a more natural to our culture. One of my partners told me when I was on a date, went to a young lady's house one time, and the girl's mother told her that a boy hair is too nappy, you know. And he told him he couldn't date her.
Because his hair was too
his hair was too kinky.
What happened to Dr. King's adage, like judges by the content of our character and the color of our skin? She threw that out the window.
Yeah, that was gone. That wasn't even part of the picture, man.
Friends, you know, we would tease them because their hair might have been a little nappier than other people's. They would get a haircut and they had still look like they didn't get a haircut, you know, so they caught some flack for that. But, you know, overall nowadays it's just, people don't pay too much attention to it. It's more of an accessory than anything else now. You can wear your hair how you want to, but if you dress right, it doesn't matter.
Every Saturday morning, like clockwork, my hair was pressed. I didn't really like it. I mean, my mother would tell me, don't move, you know, because if you move, the comb would burn you. But I would still get burned even though I didn't move. It was like clockwork. I was the only one that I remember, out of all my little friends, I was the only one that had to go through that. On the block. My mother was the only one that could actually braid, so I wore braids all my life. I was the only one that I remember getting my hair straightened with the straightening comb. The only one. All my other friends, they had different texture hair. Mine was coarse. Theirs was thinner. It was easier to handle, so they could just wash it and go.
I learned from people from my family and people from the neighborhood, and that was when I was like 12 years old, 14. This side that they don't have back home was the flat twist at the time. But I think today, everybody, you know, things go from here to everywhere. So they have flat twist also there now. Of course, being a black person, that's some kind of way to identify yourself by wearing braid.
Actually, I think the natural is coming back pretty good. People not doing the, you know, the dye, fry, lay to the side thing, you know what I'm saying? It's just natural braids and, you know, no, you don't see a whole lot of curls no more, you know what I'm saying, jerry curls. Not that it's, you know, it's not a good thing, but you just don't, it's more of a natural thing now. It's being accepted more. Because actually, you know, I guess, I don't know why, but I have a lot of white people who comes up and get their hair dreaded.
Welcome back to Global Village Talk. Barbershop scene, that's quite topical given the movie Barbershop and the controversy around it. You know, if you want to hear anything that's current, if you want to discuss any history of politics, go into a barbershop and they'll tell you like it is. In that particular clip, I was really struck with the idea that we as an African-American people, if I may, have had an issue around hair as it relates to relationships. And you've written very eloquently about relationships in the book Tender-Headed, published by Simon & Schuster, in your short stories on Pillow Talk.
Yeah, actually, my piece is an essay, and it's called, "If You Let Me Make Love to You, Then Why Can't I Touch Your Hair?"
Really?
and I interviewed about 50 people to ask them how that had shown up in their relationships. And I was amazed to hear how many women had strong rules about whether or not their lovers could touch their hair when they were, as I like to say, doing the wild thing.
Well, Valentine's Day is tomorrow.
My point.
What are some of the stories?
Well, some of it is that some of the ladies, while they're sitting under the bonnets now, are getting blown out in some way, want to look very beautiful when they meet their date, but when it starts getting hot and heavy, really have concerns about it. I don't want to sweat. I don't want him touching my hair. I don't want to wake up with my $100 hairdo ruined. So it's a big deal. So sometimes couples have to have truces about this, so much so that some black men I interviewed said, "Oh, no, 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 I learned very early that I can't touch your hair." Women were saying to me things like, "No, no, my dear, you have to train these men. You have to let them know right away they can't touch the hair." So what I learned is that, for me, when I heard the stories, Dennis had spoke to me about intimacy in a way. Does that mean that in some way not being able to touch your lover's hair creates some kind of a barrier? But for some people it doesn't. They know what the touchdown is. They know what the real purpose of the of getting together is, so maybe they're not bothered by it. But for me, it raised the question about that.
But if we can assume that that's fairly pervasive in terms of relationships, that's a very destructive kind of a notion, to think that one would alienate oneself from one's own body parts or something as indigenous as hair. Do you agree?
Well, I don't know how, I don't have any statistics, so I can't say, you know, 40% or 50%. Certainly ladies with natural hair said, thank goodness I don't have that as a concern anymore. Ladies who wear their hair straight but don't use chemical processing, still use the heat method, are concerned about perspiration, having their hair, what we call, go back, yeah. So all of that is present, and people have all kinds of thoughts going on in their thinking while they're making love. So for the concern for me was, why aren't you supposed to be focusing on your lover? So I thought that was very interesting, but I can't say it's pervasive. Some people said it's never come up for them. Some husbands, on the other hand, sleep with their wives who have rollers. They just get used to it.
Well, I think for me the issue is in terms of aesthetics and in terms of how one perceives one's body. If we draw boundaries around certain parts of our bodies being less desirable, and we're communicating that type of prohibition to our mate, it says something to our own self-esteem, in a sense, I would feel. You agree with that?
I think so. One of the stories that did not make it to the final edit was a story a friend of mine told me about the moment when she discovered about her hair. And for many of us, it happens usually we're girls about 8 or 9 years old, and it's usually around swimming. And it's usually at a time when we've gone to a pool someplace or a beach someplace, and all the girls are in the locker room or dressing room fixing themselves up after the swim, and that's where the good, bad story shows up. They're the girls who simply squeeze their hair out. They're the girls who just pick it out and they're fine to go. And they're the girls who came to the beach or to the pool with little pigtails and looking very cute. And once the hair gets wet, the hair, one can't do anything with it at all. And it's a moment of dread for some women.
Well, you know,
a moment we never forget.
I think Spike Lee captured it so well in his movie School Days. If you can recall the scene, the Jigaboos versus the Wannabes. In fact, that word wannabe has become a part of our common lexicon. We hear it all of the time as a result of that movie. But in that particular scene, there were the girls, the co-eds with the kinky hair, and there were the girls with the straightened hair. And it was a musical scene. It was cute the way it was done, I thought. But it really encapsulated the notion that we have about good hair versus bad hair.
Dennis, what I don't want to gloss over here is this, because that's true. We can sort of giggle about it. What I did want to say, though, is that there really is a moment of dread that the 8-year, 10-year-old has, which is, I never want this to happen again. I never want to be seen like this again. And I'm saying that's deeper than I don't look so great. It means that the you who was attracted to me at 10 o'clock, at 3 o'clock in the morning after my hair is totally changed, will you still be attracted to me? Because I know I look different. And that's a moment we want to avoid.
Well, there's a certain authenticity about the Afrocentric hairstyle that I would think is very liberating, and that should hopefully put that type of negativity behind us in terms of how self-esteem, particularly in young African-American girls, is viewed.
It is very freeing, for me at least, let me speak for myself, to wear my hair natural because I don't worry about what it's going to look like because basically this is what it looks like most of the time.
And it looks great, my dear.
Thank you, Dennis, thank you. But what I did want to mention is that I think we have to raise our children differently, both our sons and our daughters, because we need to instill in our children this strong sense of self that whether you wear your hair in locks or whether you choose to relax it or wear wigs or whatever you do, that you're solid on who you are, where you come from, and that foundation is unshakable. Because then it doesn't matter, you know, that, okay, my hair might have been straight, pressed or whatever when I went swimming, and when I came out it was this poofy afro. It's cool because it's all part of who I am, and I'm clear on what black womanhood means, what black manhood means. So I think there's this whole idea of needing to raise our children with a stronger consciousness.
Well, on that note, we have another clip that features Dr. Bell Hooks. She's a social critic and she's a cultural critic, and she speaks very eloquently on the notion of self-esteem in the African American experience. We're going to roll the clip to Dr. Bell Hooks.